My brother-in-law's new fiancée took one look at my rain jacket and announced to the entire rehearsal dinner table that I must have gotten lost from the soup kitchen. My husband's family laughed. My husband looked at his plate. She had no idea she'd just insulted the woman who owned the venue, the catering company, and technically her future job. This is where it all began, and you won't want to miss how it ends. The drive from Denver to Aspen takes about 4 hours if the weather holds. That night, it didn't. I sat behind the wheel of my 2011 Subaru Outback, the defroster working overtime against the sleet, my windshield wipers beating in an anxious rhythm that matched my own heartbeat. I was running 40 minutes late because the quarterly close on the Meridian Hotel Group acquisition had taken longer than any of us expected. My CFO had called 3 times. My attorney had called twice. I had eaten a granola bar over my keyboard and forgotten to eat anything else. I should have called ahead. I should have told my husband, Daniel, that I was running late, that the deal had finally closed, that we were now the majority stakeholders in 11 boutique hotels across the Rocky Mountain region. I should have pulled over, changed out of my hiking fleece, and into the silk blouse I kept in the back seat for exactly these situations. Instead, I drove. The sleet turned to snow somewhere past Glenwood Canyon, and the mountain roads narrowed, and by the time I pulled into the parking lot of the Elk Ridge Lodge and Conference Center, the venue Daniel's parents had chosen for his younger brother's rehearsal dinner, I looked like I had survived a small natural disaster. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My dark hair was damp at the edges, curling in ways it was not supposed to curl. My fleece was the color of old moss and had a small ink stain near the left pocket from a pen that had exploded during last Tuesday's board meeting. I had no lipstick. I had shadows under my eyes that concealer could not touch. I looked, objectively, like someone who needed a hot meal and 8 hours of sleep. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Daniel. "Everyone's already seated. Where are you?" Mom is asking. I pocketed the phone and stepped out into the cold. The Elk Ridge Lodge was warm and golden, and smelled of cedar and wood smoke. The main dining room had been set with long tables draped in ivory linen, candles flickering in hurricane glasses, wildflower centerpieces that I privately noted were a touch overdone. About 30 people filled the space Daniel's parents, his aunts and uncles, the groom's college friends, various cousins I recognized from Christmas cards. And at the center of it all, draped over the groom's arm like a very expensive accessory, was Natalie. I had seen Natalie in photos, of course. My brother-in-law, Tyler, had been dating her for 8 months, which in his world was practically a betrothal. She was from what Daniel's mother called Old Money Scottsdale, which I had always privately translated as New Money with a longer story. She had the kind of blonde hair that required professional maintenance twice a month, and a dress that looked simple but probably cost more than my first car. She was, by every conventional metric, stunning. She was also, I would learn, catastrophically careless with other people's dignity. I slipped into the dining room as quietly as I could, intending to find Daniel, slide into a seat, and decompress into the background for the next 2 hours. I almost made it. I was halfway around the perimeter of the room, nodding at Daniel's Aunt Carolyn, when Natalie's voice cut across the low hum of conversation like a knife through silk. Oh my goodness. Her tone was theatrical, pitched precisely loud enough for the nearest 2 tables to hear. I thought a hiker wandered in from the trail. She pressed a hand to her chest and let out a laugh, bright, high, deliberately performative. "Tyler, honey, do you think she needs directions? Or maybe a warm meal? I can ask the staff to set up a separate plate." The laughter that followed was scattered, uncertain. A few of Daniel's cousins smiled without knowing quite why. His Uncle Bob let out a bark of a chuckle before his wife put a hand on his arm. Daniel, who was seated 4 chairs down from where Natalie stood, went very still. He looked at his plate. He did not look at me. "I'm Mara," I said pleasantly, "Daniel's wife. Congratulations on the engagement." Natalie's eyes swept over me with the efficiency of a scanner at customs. She took in the fleece, the damp hair, the ink stain, the worn-in hiking boots that I had not even thought to change, because I had been on a conference call until 20 minutes ago. Something settled in her expression, a kind of satisfied certainty, like a diagnosis confirmed. "Oh, Daniel's wife," she repeated, the warmth in her voice calibrated to approximate welcome without actually providing any. "Of course. Tyler told me you were, what is it you do again? Something with real estate? Something like that, I said. Right. She nodded with the slow solemnity of someone indulging a child's explanation of a finger painting. Well, you must have come straight from a showing. Or from, is there a trailhead near here? She gestured vaguely at my jacket. I just assumed, with the, another light laugh. We dress up a little for events like this, but it's totally fine. Not everyone has the same relationship with presentation. Natalie. Tyler said her name with a particular intonation that was meant to be gentle and came across as helpless. What? She widened her eyes at him. I'm being nice. I'm just saying, it's casual Friday vibes, and that's completely— I came from a closing, I said. My voice was even. This was something I had learned over years of board meetings with men twice my age who expected me to either shrink or explode. I did neither. Long day. I apologize for being late. A closing? Natalie brightened. Like, you sold a house? Oh, that's so fun. I love real estate. Tyler and I are actually thinking about getting into a vacation property in Mara. Daniel's mother, Patricia, appeared at my elbow like a small, gracious emergency. She kissed my cheek with genuine warmth and pressed a glass of wine into my hand. We're so glad you made it. Come sit. Dinner is just starting. I followed her to my seat. I did not look back at Natalie. Dinner was, on its surface, pleasant. The food was excellent. The chef was someone I had recruited personally. A James Beard semi-finalist who had been doing farm-to-table in Boulder before I'd brought him on. The wine list was mine too, assembled with the help of a sommelier I paid very well. The floral arrangements were overdone, as I had privately noted, but the lighting was soft and the fire was going, and if I let my eyes defocus slightly, it was a beautiful room. Natalie did not let me defocus for long. She worked the table the way I had seen certain venture capitalists work a room, circling, assessing, targeting. By the salad course, she had established that Tyler's cousin worked in finance, but like banking, not investing, that Patricia's sister had recently sold her home in a buyer's market, poor thing, and that Daniel was, as she put it, so supportive of Mara's little hustle, which she said to the table at large while Daniel was refilling his water glass and not paying attention to what he was agreeing to. It's actually really sweet, Natalie continued, leaning slightly toward Tyler's best man, a broad-shouldered man named Greg, who was listening with the polite attention of someone waiting for his turn to talk. Some couples do the whole two-career thing, and it's like competitive, But Daniel is so secure. Mara does her property management thing, and he has his actual career, and it just works for them. She smiled at me across the table with the particular magnanimity of someone granting a pardon. It's so important to find your niche, even if it's small. Property management, I repeated. Or whatever it is. Real estate adjacent. She waved a hand. The point is, not everyone needs to be running a Fortune 500. She laughed again. The laugh was beginning to remind me of a smoke alarm unavoidable, designed to make you leave the room. No, I agreed. Not everyone. Daniel, across the table, finally looked up. He had the expression of a man who has been watching a chess match and just realized, too late, that he is one of the pieces. He opened his mouth. So, Natalie, I said before he could speak, and I kept my voice light, conversational, genuinely curious. Tell me about your work. Tyler mentioned you're in hospitality consulting. Something shifted in her posture. It was small, a microscopic recalibration, but I had spent 15 years reading rooms for a living, and I caught it. That's right, she said. I consult for boutique hotel properties, brand positioning, guest experience, that kind of thing. It's very specialized. Most people don't really understand the industry unless they're in it. It is a specialized industry, I agreed. She relaxed slightly, interpreting my agreement as concession. The clients I work with are very high-end, private equity-backed, mostly. The kind of properties that are, well, it's not the Holiday Inn, let's put it that way. She laughed, and Greg laughed with her, because Greg seemed constitutionally incapable of not laughing when a pretty woman laughed first. The ownership groups can be a little difficult, you know how investors are. They want everything yesterday, and they don't always understand the creative vision, but honestly, the work itself is extraordinary. The property I'm pitching right now is in Telluride. New construction, 42 rooms. They want to position it as a wellness retreat, I said. Natalie blinked. What? Wellness retreat. Organic spa, forested trail access, locally sourced dining. Telluride's saturated in the adventure tourism segment, but the wellness vertical has room. It's a smart positioning. I picked up my wine glass. Which group is the ownership? A pause. Just a fraction of a second too long. I'm not sure I should say, Natalie said. It's confidential. Of course. I nodded. The industry is small. Extremely small, she agreed, and I could see her recalibrating again, trying to locate the footing she'd lost without understanding quite when she'd lost it. You follow hotel acquisitions? A little, I said. She studied me for a moment. Then the smile returned, and she pivoted with the agility of someone who had practiced pivoting. Well, the consulting world has been incredible for me. I was actually just brought on to advise the new ownership group of a portfolio acquisition they closed today. Actually, Meridian. I think it was big deal. Major regional portfolio. They were looking for someone to develop the brand framework across properties. She said it the way people say things they want to sound impressive but don't want examined too closely. Very exciting project. I set my wine glass down. Meridian Hotel Group, I said. She was looking at Greg again, performing casualness. The acquisition that closed today. Today or yesterday, I think. The timeline was a little why? She looked at me again, and something in my expression made her stop. I reached into the pocket of my fleece. My phone was there, warm from my body heat, the screen still lit, with the final confirmation email that had come through at 6:47 p.m. The one with my attorney's signature block and the wire transfer confirmation, and the subject line that read, "Closed Meridian Hotel Group congratulations, Ara." I didn't show it to her yet. I just held it. I need to make one quick call, I said pleasantly. Excuse me. I stood up, nodded at Patricia, and walked toward the back hallway where the administrative offices were. The ones with my name on the organizational chart posted inside the staff room. The ones I had renovated 18 months ago when I bought the property. The hallway was quiet. I called my director of acquisitions, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Diane, who had been with me for 7 years, and who picked up on the second ring regardless of the hour. Mara. Congratulations again. Hell of a close. Thank you, Diane. Quick question. Did we bring on any new consulting contracts in connection with the Meridian acquisition? Brand strategy? Guest experience? That category? A brief pause. The sound of a keyboard. No. We're using the in-house team for the brand integration. We've got the Meridian transition strategy mapped to Q2. No outside consultants on this one. You specifically said you wanted to keep it internal. I did say that. Is there a problem? No problem. Just confirming. Thank you, Diane. Enjoy your evening. I hung up. I stood in the hallway for a moment, breathing in the cedar smell of the lodge, listening to the distant sound of laughter from the dining room. My own dining room, technically. The one with the fireplace I had specifically requested when the renovation architect asked what I wanted in the main event space. I wasn't angry. Anger is expensive, and I had learned, a long time ago, to spend it carefully. What I felt was something cooler and more deliberate, the same focus that had carried me through a 7-figure negotiation at 28, with men who kept addressing their comments to the male associate sitting next to me. The same focus that had built a hospitality portfolio from a single bed and breakfast I'd purchased with my savings at 23 and turned over in 14 months for 3 times what I paid. What I felt was clarity. I walked back to the dining room. The main course had arrived. Natalie was telling a story about a ski trip to Verbier that seemed to involve a minor celebrity and a customs misunderstanding. I sat back down. I picked up my fork. I let the story finish. Then I said, "Natalie, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure I understand. You said you were brought on to consult for the Meridian Acquisition Ownership Group?" She turned to me with the patient expression of someone who has decided to be generous. "That's right. And they contacted you directly? Through a referral?" "Yes. This week." "Interesting." I set down my fork. "Because I'm the one who closed the Meridian acquisition today. I've been the acquiring principal on this deal for 11 months. And we don't have any consulting contracts attached to it. I checked just now with my director of acquisitions." The table went quiet in a specific way. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in a spreading radius, like a stone dropped in still water. One conversation stopping and then another, until the only sound was the fire and, somewhere in the kitchen, the soft percussion of dishes being stacked. Natalie stared at me. "You what?" "I'm the buyer," I said simply. Our holding company finalized the Meridian purchase tonight. 11 properties across Colorado and Wyoming. I've been working on the deal since February. I paused. So, I'm not sure who told you you'd been brought on to consult, but it wasn't anyone with authority to make that decision. That decision would have come through me. That's Natalie's voice came out slightly wrong, pitched too high. That can't be right. The group I spoke with, what was the contact's name? She blinked. Her mouth opened and then did not produce a name. Because I know everyone on the Meridian side, I continued, conversationally, not pressing, just stating the geography of the situation so she could understand exactly where she was standing. I've been in weekly calls with their executive team since spring. If someone represented themselves as having hiring authority for consulting contracts on this acquisition, that would be a misrepresentation. Those contracts don't exist, and the authority to create them sits with me. Tyler was staring at his fiancée. His expression had the particular quality of someone who is very rapidly performing a retrospective review of recent conversations. "Babe," he said softly. I might have." Natalie pressed her lips together. A flush was climbing her neck. "Maybe I misunderstood the timeline." "Maybe," I said. "Or the project. It might have been a different property." She reached for her wine glass and then put it back down without drinking. "There are so many projects right now, it's easy to—" "Of course," I said. "It's a busy industry." Daniel, across the table, was looking at me now. His expression had moved through several distinct phases in the last 90 seconds and had arrived at something that looked like awe, mixed with a particular species of marital guilt. I would be addressing that later, privately. Mara. His father, Richard, cleared his throat from the head of the table. He was a dignified man, a retired engineer, careful with his words. "When you say your holding company, you own hotels?" "We have 23 properties now, with the Meridian portfolio," I said. "Boutique and luxury segment, Rocky Mountain region primarily. We also have 3 properties in the Pacific Northwest, and 1 in New Mexico that we're rebranding this spring." The silence that followed this was different from the earlier silence. It was the silence of a group of people quietly reorganizing their understanding of the room they were in. "This room," Daniel's Aunt Carolyn said, looking around slowly. "This lodge, we acquired it about 2 years ago," I said. "It was underperforming. We brought in a new culinary team, did a full renovation of the event spaces. I glanced at the centerpieces. The florals are a vendor we're still evaluating." Someone at the far end of the table let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Natalie had not moved. She was sitting very straight, her hands flat on the table, her manicure perfect, her face a careful construction that was nonetheless visibly cracking at the seams. She looked the way people look when they have understood something that cannot be ununderstood. "I should have mentioned it earlier," I said, addressing the table generally. "I'm not usually the person who leads with credentials at a family dinner. But since it came up, I looked at Natalie, and my voice was gentle. Not unkind, I was not performing cruelty. I have never found cruelty satisfying, but it was direct in the way that mountains are direct. Simply there, impossible to argue with. I want to make sure you have accurate information before you present this project to other potential clients. If someone told you they could hire for consulting contracts on the Meridian acquisition, they were overstating their authority. That could create a difficult situation for you professionally." Natalie opened her mouth. She closed it again. "Thank you," she said. The word came out small and structurally unsound. Tyler put his hand over hers on the table. He was trying, I could see, to be supportive. He was also, I could also see, approximately 70% mortified. Dinner resumed. The rhythm of it returned. Slowly, like a piece of music finding its tempo after a disruption. Richard asked me about the Wyoming properties. Daniel's cousin, the one in banking, started asking questions about the acquisition structure, with the earnest enthusiasm of someone realizing they might have undervalued a professional connection. Aunt Carolyn told me she had stayed at one of our Steamboat Springs properties for her anniversary, and that the breakfast service had been extraordinary. I answered their questions. I ate the meal my chef had prepared. I drank the wine from my list. I was, on the outside, the same person I had been when I walked in, same fleece, same damp hair, same ink stain, and I was aware, with a quiet satisfaction that I permitted myself because I had earned it, that the room had shifted entirely around me while I remained exactly where I was. Natalie spoke very little for the rest of the evening. By the time dessert arrived, a lavender panna cotta with local honey that I made a mental note to tell the chef was perfect, The table had reorganized itself around a new understanding. Tyler's best man, Greg, who had laughed at Natalie's jokes with the reflexive enthusiasm of a studio audience, was now asking me about investment opportunities in the hospitality space with the focused attention of someone taking note. Patricia was telling me that she had always known I was doing something remarkable, and while I knew this was not entirely true, I accepted it because she meant it now. And that was something. What I did not feel, sitting at that table, was triumphant in the way people imagine you must feel in moments like this. It was not a parade. It was more like setting down something very heavy and realizing how long you had been carrying it. At the end of the night, when the candles were burning low and the party was dissolving into coats and car keys and cold weather goodbyes, Natalie found me near the door. She had her wrap pulled around her shoulders, and her composure had been repaired. Mostly, though the grouting showed, she looked, for the first time since I had walked through the door, like a person rather than a performance. "I want to apologize," she said, "for earlier. What I said when you arrived." I looked at her. I took in the careful sincerity, the effort it had cost her. "Thank you," I said. "I made assumptions." She paused. "A lot of assumptions." "You did," I agreed. She waited, I think, for me to fill the space with absolution, to say, "It's okay, it happens, don't worry about it." I had been saying things like that my entire adult life, smoothing over, minimizing, making the discomfort disappear so everyone else could be comfortable. I had gotten very good at it. I had also grown very tired of it. "I hope you and Tyler are happy," I said instead. "Truly. He's a good person." I zipped my fleece to the collar. "The consulting work, if you're genuinely interested in the wellness vertical in Telluride, there are real opportunities there. Talk to me after the wedding. I can give you an honest read on the market." She blinked. She had clearly not expected an offer, or not that kind. "Really? You clearly know how to read a room," I said. "That's a real skill. It could be useful, applied differently." She didn't know quite what to do with that. I didn't blame her. It was not what the moment was scripted to produce. Daniel found me at the car. The sleet had stopped, and the sky had cleared, and the mountains were silhouettes against a blue-dark sky hung with more stars than I ever remembered seeing. As a kid growing up in Phoenix, dreaming about exactly this, though I had not known then what this would look like. "I'm sorry," he said. "About tonight. I should have said something." When she, "Yeah," I said. "You should have." He leaned against the passenger side of the Subaru, the old faithful Subaru that he had once, gently, suggested I replace, and that I had kept because I could not see a compelling reason to change something that worked simply because something newer existed. "Why didn't you ever tell them?" "My family. About everything." I thought about it. The question deserved a real answer. Because when we first started coming to family dinners, I said, I was 26 and I had one property and a lot of debt and a plan that hadn't proven itself yet. And your family looked at me the way they looked at me tonight, like I was somebody's plus one. And I wanted to see if that would change on its own. I opened the car door. It didn't, until tonight. And tonight it only changed because of what I own. I looked at him across the roof of the car. "That tells you something." Daniel was quiet. "It tells me something too," I added, and I got in. I drove us back through the mountains. The roads clear now, the Subaru steady and unhurried. My phone lit up twice with emails I would answer in the morning. The Meridian integration plan, a note from the Telluride development contact, the world of the work I had built, humming quietly along, indifferent to what had happened in that dining room, unconcerned with who had underestimated who. At the first red light in town, a notification came in from my real estate attorney. The Park City property seller accepted your cash offer. Closing date TBD. Congratulations, Mara. That's 24. I put the phone face down on the console and drove the rest of the way in silence, the mountains holding still on either side of us, enormous and patient and entirely uninterested in being proven right. They already knew what they were. So did I.